SMT Nation, let me have a moment of your time so I could tell you a little bit about our partner, Southern New Hampshire University, otherwise known as SNHU. SNHU is a great opportunity for a lot of you out there to possibly embark on a new career training. It's a school that can give you world-class student support so you never feel left out. They've got great opportunities and programs, job projection for growth, flexible term starts, 24/7 online accessibility. They also have a very extensive portfolio of degree programs with some of the lowest tuition rates across the country. And quite often you can transfer up to 90 credits toward any undergraduate degree that they offer. Different courses might include network security, application security, incident response, and investigation through their online BS and cybersecurity, one that I feel is quite compelling for a lot of you out there. So using our partner link down here in the description, as well as here on the screen, you guys can see it, snhu.edu/sneed. You can check out their programs, get more information, register for courses, and sign up for your future. Consider SNHU for your future coursework needs and getting a career in something very rewarding. Check them out, link is in the description. AT&T, Dish, and T-Mobile bicker over limits on spectrum ownership. All right, some of you may know, especially for the folks who have been following the channel for a long time, right? And especially the people who are patrons or YouTube members, when I do extra content and I cover details like this, there's this little thing called spectrum screens. And the FCC puts them in place so no carrier has too much spectrum that it's uncompetitive within certain markets. And really, the FCC hasn't exercised spectrum screen, at least in the recent past. I don't remember anything. They try to set parameters and rules for like auctions. I remember they did it with DoD. They set the parameters at 40 megahertz of bandwidth. You know, they do that within the confines of specific auctions. And then they have screens like how much low band you can have within a market, how much mid band, and those types of things. So, you know, some of the nuances within the industry, I guess you just got to kind of pay attention to. So this is a story in which you have companies kind of, I don't know, talking smack about one another here. AT&T is proposing new FCC rules around limiting mid-band spectrum ownership. T-Mobile and Dish agree that some limits may be necessary, but all companies disagree about the details. So they all acknowledge that there should be some checks and balances, but how you get to that solution, it doesn't look like they're on the same page. Okay, so the quote here from T-Mobile: "The Commission's current spectrum holdings policies and rules are unquestionably out of date and in need of reform." I have to agree. I think rules that were put in place decades ago likely have to be updated, require some review and some modification. The company argued that putting strict limits on the amount of spectrum that any one company can own is difficult in the technologically advanced 5G era. I want to talk about this. A part of me agrees with T-Mobile. And the reason I agree with T-Mobile here is because these companies need spectrum. They are doing two things with their network right now. They sell mobile service access and they sell home internet, 5G home internet access. That in and of itself warrants needing more spectrum. So T-Mobile is one of those companies that double dips: mobile service, home broadband service. The mobile user at T-Mobile uses the most data of any type of customer in the industry, and growing. They add customers at a very good clip every quarter, so they take their share. And now they've got fixed wireless access subscribers to the count of 500,000 or 600,000 subs added quarterly. I get their position. I totally feel them on this. Verizon's no different. They're doing the same thing. They go through cable. They acquired TracFone. You know, they've got home internet customers now. Like, this makes a lot of sense. Carriers need more spectrum. All right, let's see what else T-Mobile wrote. Quote: "The emergence of fixed wireless service offerings that depend on large spectrum holdings to compete with wired broadband providers is just one example of how the fundamental assumptions underlying the use of spectrum screens are no longer valid." See, this is exactly what I just said. See, I didn't even get that far, and I already knew where they were going. These are legitimate concerns. You're selling home internet, you need more spectrum. So I totally get it. Instead, T-Mobile argued the FCC should only create limits on the amount of spectrum any one company can purchase in an agency spectrum auction. So they're basically saying, set the terms and the limits at time of auction. Don't set the terms on the company's overall holdings. So I'm kind of with them on this. As much as I hate to agree with a big corporation, I mean, they're building a network and they need more spectrum and their customers are using it. So I kind of agree with T-Mobile, guys. I do. Quote, upfront limits are the most effective way to ensure robust auction participation and fast, efficient licensing to put auction spectrum to use for consumers. Now, I want to mention something here. This setup that T-Mobile is proposing hurts one company. This restriction would hurt AT&T. AT&T, due to its financial position, likely was not able to secure enough C-band for what they wanted to accomplish. So they had to go maxed out on DoD. And had they been able to purchase 60 megahertz national, they would have. Had they been able to purchase 80 megahertz of DoD, they would have. But they weren't allowed to because the rules for the auction were set at 40 megahertz bandwidth for any one company. That type of restriction is what hurts AT&T in the future. They're going to want bigger swaths of spectrum to become available because they've improved their money situation. They know that the auctions moving forward won't have the same demand as the previous one in C-band and stuff like that. So T-Mobile's structure and their proposal hurts AT&T. Verizon and T-Mobile are more along the same lines, probably in support of this. And actually, if you notice, Verizon never talks about stuff like this. They don't even have a public comment. They don't even care. They just put their head down and build networks, man. Dish has different ideas. Let's see what Dish had to say. Quote, the commission should establish a national screen of 25%, Dish told the FCC. Okay, so if without looking at the details, a screen of 25% basically says everybody should have the same amount of spectrum in each market. Not how it works, Dish. You just got here, Dish. Oh my God. Let's read on. Such a screen is consistent with the objective of a mobile voice and broadband market with at least 4 nationwide carriers. Exceedance of that screen should not only justify heightened review, it should create a rebuttal presumption of denial of any transaction that results in or starts from such an exceedance. They want 4 carriers, and they want every carrier having 25% share of the spectrum. They just want their quarter, man. They just got here, and they're entitled to 25%. Wow, Dish, you people are insane. All right, let's read on. All right, spectrum screens first introduced in 2004. So that gives you an idea of when that was first proposed and established. Screens are generally triggered when one company acquires more than 1/3 of the total suitable and available spectrum for commercial services in a given market. In 2014, they targeted the low bands. In 2016, they targeted mmWave. So the high band and the low band. So they need one for mid-band. And I think that's what this is all about. AT&T took to issue with T-Mobile in the 2.5 gigahertz. Right? And we know that AT&T has been on the FCC's ass about getting more spectrum out there. AT&T argued, quote, T-Mobile spectrum strategy, accumulating an outsized share of a key scarce input that has no current plans to deploy, thus denying it to rivals and raising their costs, is a classic example of anti-competitive foreclosure. All right, so AT&T's probably right here, well, at least partly. But they're operating from a position of weakness, so it's like a tree falls down in the woods, but nobody's there to hear it. Does it even matter? AT&T put themselves in this position, and now they're bellyaching and complaining that T-Mobile has strengthened spectrum. Oh, I'm so sorry, AT&T. I'm so sorry you don't have enough spectrum. My condolences to your spectrum position. You should have paid for more. You should have bought more when you had the chance. You shouldn't have let Verizon go 160 megahertz national. You should not have let T-Mobile get 60 megahertz in some markets. You should not. You know, you should have been active in the CBRS spectrum license auction. You should have been more active. You should be deploying more CRAN. Enough. EM Tech says, I feel for Dish in a sense. I think there needs to be more scrutiny on the amount of sub 1 gigahertz spectrum each carrier is allowed to have. Which is crazy, EM, because they put the screen in 2014 for that spectrum. Tech Guy 32 says AT&T might have bad motives, but they are probably right about T-Mobile having too much wireless spectrum under the spectrum screen rules. And that's fine, Tech Guy 32. That may be true. But I mean, the FCC's got rules for auctions. T-Mobile's gone to those auctions and purchased spectrum. Really, the problem is the FCC didn't keep them out of auctions after the T-Mobile and Sprint merger. So that's on the FCC, right? So if AT&T has a bone with anybody, it's not a bone against T-Mobile. It should be a bone against the FCC. Each company urged the FCC to craft new rules. AT&T argued that the FCC should rescind the in-band spectrum cap on 3.45. Not surprisingly, AT&T was the big winner in FCC's recent auction. So here's what this means, guys. They want more DoD. They want an additional 20 megahertz. They want an additional 40 megahertz. Who would they get that from? Oh, I don't know. Dish? A failed Dish company, possibly? I don't know. US Cellular, I think they bought some. They got some C-band, I think. I mean, there's options, right? There's stuff out there. Tech Guy 32 says T-Mobile also knew the rules and knew this could come up. Sure, absolutely. EM Tech says my problem is that Dish had no chance to compete because there's no sub 1 gigahertz to buy in the first place. The most they have in a lot of places 5x5 600. That's not enough, and that's why they have to get the 800 megahertz from T-Mobile. They have to make that happen. Dish specifically said the commission should limit 600 megahertz spectrum ownership to 3 10 megahertz channel blocks. It's not a surprise considering the company is working to prevent T-Mobile from buying more 600 from the likes of Columbia Capital and Comcast. I agree with this. Enough of taking all the low band T-Mobile. Enough. Dish also said the commission should impose limits across any transaction involving spectrum. A proposal that would position the FCC to potentially strip away operators' existing spectrum holdings if they seek to purchase more. Uh-oh. I don't know, man. Starting to overstep boundaries. T-Mobile has a different view. The company said the FCC should set the limits on the amount of spectrum in an auction, adding that the agency should review other spectrum purchases only by a realistic threat of foreclosure shown through specific evidence. Notice there's no talk from Verizon. Verizon doesn't get involved in these things. They just build the networks. That's all they do. All right, so these are the proposals, and that's kind of the angles from the different carriers. I love how Verizon has nothing to say on this. They just don't care. They're just going to put their head down, build fiber, upgrade and modernize their towers, build more CRAN, mmWave. Let the birds squawk. They'll just build the networks. Love it, man. Love it.